Where's the protection money? Ah!
There won't be any money for you criminals.
Biker ripped a simple woman's shirt. The Marine Corps tattoo froze the whole bar. The sound of fabric tearing cut through Murphy's Roadhouse like a gunshot. Viper Jackson's massive hand gripped Elena Rodriguez's work shirt, ripping it down the shoulder. He expected tears, maybe screaming. Instead, deadly silence fell. The Marine Corps Eagle Globe and Anchor tattoo glared from her exposed shoulder force Recon trident beneath it. Every veteran in the bar recognized that ink. Former gunnery sergeant Elena Rodriguez, 34, had spent 3 years serving drinks and hiding from her past as Force Reconnaissance Marine. Tonight, her carefully constructed civilian life would shatter when violence forced her back into the warrior she'd tried to bury. Phones rose throughout Murphy's as veterans sat straighter in their chairs. The tattoo wasn't decoration, it was blood oath. Elena's hidden past was about to activate a brotherhood that never truly retires, never truly forgets. Gunnery Sergeant Elena Rodriguez had once worn digital camouflage. Instead of stained aprons, carried M4 rifles instead of beer trays. 1st Force Reconnaissance Battalion, the Marine Corps' elite Special Operations Unit, where only the deadliest and most disciplined warriors earn the right to exist. 6 deployments across Iraq and Afghanistan, classified operations that officially never happened. Her commendations included Bronze Star with Valor Silver Star Purple Heart and scars that told stories no civilian therapist could comprehend. She'd been the only woman in a platoon of ghosts running deep reconnaissance missions through territory where one mistake meant entire squads disappeared. She'd carried wounded Marines through enemy fire, eliminated high-value targets in classified operations, and earned respect from warriors who'd initially questioned whether any woman belonged in Force Recon. Her transition to civilian life had been catastrophic. PTSD nightmares, survivor's guilt, and isolation that made serving beer seem safer than serving her country. Murphy's Roadhouse had become her refuge, a place where nobody asked questions about the scars or the 1,000-yard stare that occasionally surfaced during busy nights. Vincent Viper Jackson ruled the Desert Vipers Motorcycle Club through intimidation, violence, and the kind of criminal enterprise that passed itself off as outlaw brotherhood. Behind his leather vest and chrome Harley-Davidson lay drug trafficking, extortion rackets, and systematic terrorism of small communities too isolated for effective law enforcement response. At 6'4" and 280 pounds, Viper had built his reputation, crushing anyone who opposed his protection schemes, particularly targeting women and elderly business owners who couldn't fight back effectively. His military service consisted of a dishonorable discharge after 6 months, but he wore veteran patches he'd never earned while terrorizing actual veterans too damaged to challenge his stolen valor. What Viper had never faced was real combat, real training, or real warriors who'd survived situations that would have killed him in minutes. Murphy's Roadhouse served as unofficial sanctuary for area veterans, retired Marines, Navy corpsmen, Army Rangers, and Special Forces operators who gathered quietly for beer and brotherhood without discussing their classified pasts. Most customers never realized the quiet bartender was former Force Recon, or that half the regular customers carried more combat experience than most active duty units possessed collectively. The confrontation had been building for weeks as Viper's protection racket expanded into previously untouched territory, where Murphy's represented the kind of independent business that threatened organized crime's territorial control. Elena had been wiping down glasses when 8 desert vipers entered with the swagger of men who'd never faced real opposition. "Protection money's due, sweetheart," Viper announced, his voice carrying across the crowded bar where Friday night patrons tried to ignore the obvious threat. "$5,000 monthly or this place burns down with everyone inside." Elena set down her towel with controlled movements that reflected military training most civilians would never recognize. "We don't pay protection money to criminals pretending to be motorcycle enthusiasts," she replied calmly, her voice carrying authority that made several veterans look up from their drinks. Viper's face flushed with rage at being challenged by someone he viewed as helpless female service worker. "You think you're tough, little girl? Let me show you what happens to mouthy bitches who don't know their place." His massive hand shot out, gripping Elena's shirt and jerking her forward with violent force that would have terrified most civilians. The fabric tore from collar to shoulder, exposing not just skin, but the detailed military tattoos that told stories of service most people couldn't comprehend. The bar fell silent as patrons processed what they were seeing, not random ink, but earned military insignia that identified Elena as someone far more dangerous than any biker gang member. The Marine Corps Eagle, Globe, and Anchor dominated her shoulder, but beneath it, the Force Recon trident and skull made several veterans audibly gasp. "What the fuck is this?" Viper demanded, staring at tattoos that meant nothing to him but everything to the combat veterans who recognized them immediately. Elena stood slowly, her posture shifting from civilian service worker to military operator, with precision that decades of training had burned into muscle memory. "That's who I am," she said evenly, her voice carrying command authority that made grown men straighten unconsciously. "Force Reconnaissance 1st Battalion, 6 deployments, 43 confirmed kills, Bronze Star with Valor. Who are you?" The question hung in suddenly heavy air as Desert Vipers realized they'd walked into something far more dangerous than a neighborhood bar. Veterans throughout Murphy's began standing their own military bearing, becoming apparent as they recognized one of their own under attack. "Bullshit!" Viper snarled, but his voice carried less conviction as he faced someone whose calm competence suggested capabilities he couldn't understand. "You're just another broken veteran serving drinks for tips. Doesn't mean you can take on 8 bikers." Elena's eyes never wavered, her gaze carrying the 1,000-yard stare that identified warriors who'd seen things civilian minds couldn't process. "I don't need to take on 8 bikers," she replied quietly. "I already own this room." Around the bar chairs scraped as veterans stood with military precision that transformed casual Friday night gathering into tactical formation. The aging Marine in corner booth wore K-San patches. The quiet woman near the dartboard was Navy Corpsman with Silver Star ribbons, and the amputee by the pool table was Army Ranger whose prosthetic leg gleamed beneath worn jeans. "What you see are customers?" Elena continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. "What I see is my Marine Corps, and we protect our own." The Desert Vipers found themselves surrounded not by random bar patrons, but by warriors whose combined combat experience exceeded their criminal imagination. Master Sergeant Thomas "Tank" Rodriguez, 52, rose from his corner table with movements that identified decades of Marine Corps service to anyone with military experience. His weathered hands bore scars from Fallujah and Ramadi, and his eyes, held the steady confidence of someone who'd survived situations that killed lesser men. Elena Rodriguez. He addressed Elena with proper military courtesy, using her former rank with respect that transcended civilian employment status. First Force Recon, if I'm reading your ink correctly, Semper Fi Marine. Elena's throat tightened with emotion she'd suppressed for 3 years of civilian hiding. Semper Fi Master Sergeant. Good to see friendly faces when things get complicated. Around the bar, other veterans revealed themselves through military bearing that had never truly faded despite years of civilian camouflage. Navy Senior Chief Patricia Martinez, 48, wore her sealed trident tattoo with pride as she positioned herself with tactical awareness that impressed Elena's professional assessment. "Ma'am," Senior Chief Martinez called out, "what's your tactical assessment of this situation?" Elena surveyed the Desert Vipers with eyes that had once tracked enemy combatants through urban warfare environments. 8 hostiles, unknown weapons, confined space with civilian casualties potential. Recommend defensive positions with de-escalation priority unless they initiate violence. The response was immediate and coordinated. Veterans moved with practiced efficiency that transformed Murphy's Roadhouse into tactical command center where brotherhood superseded civilian social boundaries. Army Ranger Staff Sergeant Michael Doc Thompson, medically retired after losing his left leg to IED blast in Afghanistan, positioned his wheelchair to block the Desert Viper's primary exit route while maintaining clear fields of fire that his tactical training had permanently burned into strategic thinking. "Gunny, I count 12 veterans present, mixed service branches, combined combat experience exceeding 40 years, Doc reported with military precision. These wannabe bikers walked into the wrong bar on the wrong night. The Desert Vipers began shifting nervously as they realized their intimidation tactics were failing against people who'd faced real enemies with real weapons in real combat situations. Viper's confidence wavered as he counted military tattoos, service patches, and the kind of calm competence that identified warriors rather than victims. "You people need to stand down before this gets out of hand," Viper threatened, but his voice cracked with uncertainty as he faced opposition he'd never encountered in his criminal career. "Sir," Elena replied with icy calm that carried command authority earned through years of leading Marines in combat. "You assaulted a decorated veteran in a room full of her brothers and sisters. This situation was out of hand the moment you put your hands on me." Air Force Combat Controller, Sergeant First Class Lisa Chen, 34, activated her phone's recording function while positioning herself with tactical awareness that impressed the Marines present. "Everything's being documented for federal authorities who prosecute hate crimes against veterans." The transformation of Murphy's Roadhouse from civilian bar to military formation was complete as veterans coordinated with silent efficiency that decades of combat experience had taught them. Each service member understood their role without verbal commands. Perimeter security, communications, medical support, and tactical overwatch that would have impressed active duty commanders. "Viper," Elena said quietly, her voice carrying across sudden silence that made her words echo with authority earned through blood and sacrifice. "You have 2 choices. Apologize to me and everyone in this establishment, then leave permanently, or continue escalating this situation until federal authorities arrive to investigate assault on disabled veterans and hate crimes against protected classes." Navy Hospital Corpsman, First Class Robert Kim, 45 stepped forward with medical bag that never left his side since retiring from Marine units, where his battlefield medicine had saved dozens of lives under enemy fire. Ma'am, if these criminals choose violence, we're prepared for medical triage and evidence documentation that prosecutors will need. The Desert Vipers found themselves surrounded by warriors whose combined tactical experience exceeded their criminal capabilities by orders of magnitude. Phones throughout the bar recorded everything, while social media posts were already spreading news of the confrontation across veteran networks nationwide. Viper's criminal empire was about to face opposition from people who'd fought real enemies in real wars and won. Sheriff Patricia Santos arrived at Murphy's Roadhouse within 20 minutes, responding to multiple 911 calls reporting possible violence involving motorcycle gang members and military veterans. Her own Army service in Iraq meant she understood the tactical situation before entering the establishment. Elena Rodriguez, Sheriff Santos, said recognizing the former Marine whose military record she'd researched after Elena had applied for concealed carry permits. "I didn't realize you were Force Recon. That explains why my deputies always felt safer when you were working late shifts." Elena maintained military bearing despite torn clothing and visible tattoos that revealed service she'd kept hidden for 3 years. "Sheriff, these individuals attempted extortion and committed assault when I refused their protection racket demands. Everything was recorded by multiple witnesses. Videos were already spreading across social media platforms with hashtags Veteran Strong and Force Recon Strong, trending as the story reached military communities nationwide. The Desert Vipers weren't just facing local law enforcement, they were confronting federal attention that would investigate their entire criminal enterprise. Viper Jackson, Sheriff Santos continued examining her tablet displaying the criminal's extensive record. "You're under arrest for assault, attempted extortion, and intimidation of veterans. Federal authorities are also interested in your organization's interstate criminal activities." FBI agent Sarah Martinez herself, a Marine veteran, had been monitoring motorcycle gang activities across the Southwest and was already en route with federal warrants that would dismantle the Desert Vipers' criminal operations permanently. The confrontation that began with attempted intimidation was ending with federal prosecution that would destroy an entire criminal organization. Murphy's Roadhouse filled with community support within hours. As news spread through veteran networks and social media platforms, where Elena's story inspired thousands of former military personnel to share their own experiences with civilian discrimination and criminal targeting. Local business owners arrived with flowers, food, and pledges of support for the establishment that had become symbol of veteran resilience against criminal intimidation. The mayor issued statements condemning criminal targeting of veterans while praising Elena's courage and the military community's protective response. Elena Rodriguez represents everything right about American military service. Mayor Jennifer Thompson declared to news crews covering the story. Her quiet service to our community was heroic before tonight, and her courage under attack proves that Marine Corps training never fades. National news outlets picked up the story as symbol of veteran strength and community solidarity against organized crime that targeted military personnel through systematic intimidation campaigns. Elena's Force Recon background resonated with audiences who understood the elite nature of her military service. Corporate sponsors offered financial support for Murphy's Roadhouse renovations, while veteran organizations pledged ongoing security assistance to ensure the establishment remained safe haven for military personnel seeking community and brotherhood. The Desert Vipers' attempted intimidation had backfired spectacularly, generating national attention that would result in federal investigations dismantling their criminal operations while elevating Elena as symbol of veteran courage and military brotherhood that transcended service periods and civilian employment status. Federal prosecutors filed charges against 8 Desert Vipers members under Recon statutes targeting organized criminal enterprises, hate crime legislation, protecting veterans, and interstate commerce violations related to their extortion activities across multiple states. Vincent Jackson and his criminal associates targeted veterans through systematic intimidation campaigns that constitute federal crimes, announced U.S. Attorney Michael Rodriguez. Their assault on Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez was captured on video and will result in enhanced penalties for targeting disabled veterans. Elena testified before a federal grand jury investigating motorcycle gang criminal activities, her military record and civilian employment providing credibility that prosecutors needed for successful convictions. Her force recon background impressed jurors who understood the elite nature of her service. Defense attorneys attempted to portray the Desert Vipers as legitimate motorcycle enthusiasts exercising First Amendment rights. But video evidence of criminal threats and physical assault against disabled veterans destroyed their credibility completely. Within 6 months, federal convictions resulted in prison sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years for Desert Vipers' leadership, while asset forfeiture proceedings dismantled their criminal financial empire permanently. Elena's courage in standing against criminal intimidation had activated federal law enforcement response that protected veteran communities nationwide from similar criminal targeting, while demonstrating that military brotherhood extended far beyond active service periods into civilian life, where former warriors continued protecting each other against domestic enemies. Murphy's Roadhouse transformed overnight from neighborhood bar to veteran sanctuary, where military personnel from across Arizona gathered to honor Elena's courage and celebrate the destruction of criminal organization that had terrorized their community for years. The establishment implemented new policies recognizing military service through discounted meals, reserved seating for disabled veterans, and memorial displays honoring fallen service members whose sacrifice was remembered through community gatherings that Elena organized monthly. Elena's story inspired veteran organizations nationwide to establish rapid response networks protecting military personnel from criminal targeting, while providing legal and financial support when former service members faced discrimination or intimidation in civilian settings. Corporate sponsors funded security improvements for Murphy's, while veteran-owned businesses provided employment opportunities for military personnel transitioning to civilian careers, creating economic support networks that government programs couldn't match through bureaucratic channels. Most importantly, Elena discovered that revealing her military service had connected her with veteran community. She'd been missing since leaving active duty, providing brotherhood and purpose that civilian employment alone couldn't satisfy. The Department of Defense featured Elena's story in veteran transition programs, demonstrating how military skills and brotherhood continued serving communities long after formal service ended inspiring other veterans to engage with civilian society, rather than isolating themselves through PTSD and survivor guilt. Elena became spokesperson for veteran advocacy organizations addressing criminal targeting of military personnel. Her Force Recon background providing credibility that influenced federal legislation, strengthening penalties for crimes against veterans while expanding support services. Congressional Veterans Affairs committees used Elena's experience to demonstrate need for community-based veteran support programs that complemented government services through peer networks and civilian partnerships that understood military culture and brotherhood values. National media coverage generated scholarship funds for Elena's college education while establishing the Rodriguez Foundation, providing emergency financial assistance to veterans facing criminal intimidation or civilian discrimination that threatened their economic stability and community integration. Her courage had activated nationwide support networks that would protect thousands of veterans from similar criminal targeting while encouraging military personnel to engage with civilian communities rather than hiding their service records. Elena's integration into veteran advocacy work provided purpose that connected her military training with civilian community service, demonstrating that Force Recon skills translated effectively to protecting vulnerable populations through legal and social channels rather than combat operations. Murphy's Roadhouse became headquarters for veteran support services, connecting military personnel with employment opportunities, mental health resources, and legal assistance when former service members faced discrimination or criminal targeting in civilian settings. The establishment's walls now displayed photographs of area veterans alongside their service records and community contributions, creating memorial space where military sacrifice was honored while encouraging continued civic engagement that served community needs. Elena's revelation had activated brotherhood networks that extended far beyond single confrontation, creating lasting changes that would protect veteran communities for generations, while demonstrating that military service created bonds stronger than criminal intimidation or civilian indifference could overcome. The Rodriguez Protocol became federal policy protecting veterans from criminal targeting through enhanced penalties, rapid response investigations, and community partnership programs that connected military personnel with civilian support networks capable of immediate assistance when former service members faced intimidation or discrimination. Elena addressed Veterans Affairs committees monthly, her Force Recon background providing credibility that influenced federal legislation, while her civilian experience demonstrated successful military-to-civilian transition that served as model for other veterans struggling with community integration and purpose after service. The Department of Veterans Affairs created partnership programs with local businesses, law enforcement agencies, and community organizations that provided veteran support services exceeding government capabilities through peer networks and civilian volunteers who understood military culture and brotherhood values. Federal funding supported veteran protection programs, while Elena's foundation provided emergency assistance to military personnel facing criminal targeting or civilian discrimination that threatened their economic stability and community participation. Elena Rodriguez discovered that revealing her military service had connected her with purpose and community she'd been missing since leaving active duty, transforming her from isolated civilian worker to veteran advocate whose Force Recon training served community protection, through legal and social channels. Her work with veteran organizations provided employment opportunities, mental health support, and legal assistance to thousands of former military personnel, while demonstrating that military skills enhanced civilian community service rather than being irrelevant to post-service life. Murphy's Roadhouse became symbol of veteran strength and community solidarity, proving that military brotherhood transcended service periods while creating safe spaces where former warriors could find purpose and belonging in civilian society. The Murphy's Roadhouse incident proved that military service created bonds stronger than criminal intimidation, civilian indifference, or post-service isolation could overcome when veterans united to protect their brotherhood against domestic enemies wearing civilian clothes instead of foreign uniforms. Elena learned that courage developed through military training translated directly to civilian heroism, standing against criminal targeting even when facing overwhelming odds and personal danger. Honor earned through military service doesn't disappear with discharge. It adapts to civilian missions where veterans continue protecting communities with same intensity shown defending America overseas. In the end, Elena Rodriguez learned that hiding her force recon service had been protecting no one. The same training that made her deadly in combat made her invaluable in civilian life, not as weapon, but as protector of those who couldn't protect themselves.